Thank you all for joining us. I am Cassidy Miller, a member of the MCLD Global Secretariat, and we are very excited to be celebrating with all of you today. We have interpretation options today in French, Spanish, English, and ASL. To access interpretation in your language, please click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and choose your language. English speakers, please also be sure to choose English. And our speakers, please also choose your language. Also, throughout the event, please feel free to share thoughts, questions, and messages in the chat. And as we prepare to start, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat by sharing your name and where you're calling from. We have a very packed agenda today, so please make sure your microphone is on mute throughout the event. We know accidental unmuting happens, so in that case, we will kindly mute you to prevent any disruptions. If you are joining today with viewing parties and have not yet changed your name, please change your Zoom name to your country so we can appropriately highlight you. And also remember to take photos if you are with other MCLD members and friends. So again, thank you all for being here and being part of our celebration. At this time, we will get the program started. So to welcome us, I am happy to introduce Gunjan Veda, MCLD's Global Secretary, who will take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Cassidy, I think we lost the last of your video, some of the tech issues, but I'm Gunjan Veda. I have the pleasure of serving as the Global Secretary of MCLD. And it is really a pleasure and honor to have all of you with us today as we celebrate 10 years of MCLD. MCLD began as a hope, a dream, an idea 10 years ago. And today we are a movement. And as Professor Kibwana, the former governor of McQueeney County, reminded us yesterday, from a dream, we have become a movement, a force for change in this world. And it has been possible because of each and every person who has been part of this journey with us. So even before we begin, I want us all to just take a moment to celebrate each one of us, the work we have been doing, the connectedness, the community that we have forged together to bring us to this moment. As Cassidy said, we have a really packed agenda today. We have people coming together in person in 15 countries. So we're going to be traveling across the world over the next 2.5 hours, saying hello to different countries and members across the world, hearing from them, seeing our voices, and stepping into this interconnection that defines MCLD. We know that it's not ideal timing, one of the challenges of the global movement. It is 7 a.m. in Honduras where people are meeting in person. It is 5 p.m. in East Africa. You know, by the time we finish, it's going to be really late in Sri Lanka, in the Philippines. Those are just some of the challenges we face when we work together. But I am so grateful and thankful to every single person who has taken out the time to be with us today. This moment has been a long way in the making, right? If you've been part of the celebrations, we've been having celebrations for the last 1 week. Different regions have been pulling together their members to showcase the work that they have done, to showcase our vision of the future we all want to see and create together. And today, we're going to hear a little bit from each of those regions. We're going to hear from our associations. We're going to hear from partners and allies and friends. We're going to hear from members. So we have a very packed agenda. 2.5 hours is going to go by very, very quickly. But I hope that we leave this space today feeling more connected, more energized, more hopeful about the future and the world. because hope is a form of resistance. Hope is courage. Hope is commitment. Hope is what gives us a better tomorrow. And for us, this is what this celebration is. It is all of us sharing not just our lessons, not just the power of collective action, but the power of hope with everybody around us. So for today's event, we are going to have a 5-part agenda. We are going to start with a brief introduction to MCLD, not just who we are, but our structure, about what makes us unique, a little bit of a vision for the future. Then we have 4 segments. And these 4 segments each lean into something we believe is critical for the world going forward. These are also the 4 themes of our regional events. So we'll start with practice. What does the practice of community-led development, what does the practice of accountable, strong local governance look like? We're then going to move to policy, where we're going to look at not just policy advocacy, but accountability, mutual accountability, which is so critical, because what use are policies if they don't translate into action, right? Then we're going into something that we have been talking about for a while now, but which is even more important in this moment, and that is self-reliance. So we're going to look at self-reliance. What does it mean? What does this mean at the community level? For us as organizations, for networks, what does this mean for our sector? What does this mean for our countries, right? And finally, the last theme, but the one that brings us all together, the underlying theme of everything that we are and that we do, solidarity. So today's event will have these 5 parts. In each part, you'll hear a little bit about what the last 10 years have been. You'll hear from friends, allies, partners, members about what it means. You'll hear report outs from the regional events. And then you will hear a little bit about how do we plan to take this pillar forward. So we hope that at the end of our time together, we will go back with ideas, with hope, with a collective vision of a future which is just, equitable, peaceful, and for all of us. So with that, we are going to head, as I mentioned earlier, we have today, for the first time, we have tried to make sure that each one of our associations, to the extent possible, and our members are able to be with us in person. So in 15 countries across the world, we have MCLD teams and members who have come together. And that is where we're going to start our journey today. Throughout the event, we will zoom into different countries to say hello to each other. And so for now, we are going to start with Malawi. Molibanje, Malawi.
Did we know?
Hello. Hello.
Malawi. Bienvenue, Benin.
Oui, le Bénin.
Le Bénin, on vous salue.
Oh. Salut, 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 salut. Est-ce qu'on voit tout le monde? Oh non.
Okay.
Okay.
We will come back.
No.
Okay.
Oh, c'est bon? Ah bon, d'accord. Ah, voilà.
Ok.
On vous salue. Le Bénin vous salue.
Karibu sana, Kenya.
Ah, c'est Cameroun.
Thank you. So you'll see throughout the day, we will keep visiting different countries to come together. But for now, we are going to, okay, we are seeing something else. I also have to say, before we go on, we're trying to do a lot of tech things together today. Connection and connectivity has always been a problem. Our members, I mean, if you've been on MCLD calls before, you have seen members trying to come together under a tree in remote parts, just trying to be connected, right? So bear with us. We will have connectivity challenges. Technology will try to mess things up for us, but we will prevail, right? So with that, we're going to get into our first segment right away. We're going to get into what is MCLD. And we would like to share that in the words of our team, the Secretariat team. So, Sarah, whenever we are ready.
Later. Hit the later button.
Imagine a world in which every person has a voice in decisions that affect their lives. The Movement for Community-Led Development is a majority world-led network of networks, working to transform unjust and inequitable systems through courageous collective action.
We believe in community power, and we put that belief into action by engaging diverse voices in co-creating solutions and driving meaningful change.
We started in Malawi in May 2015, and we officially launched the same year in September during the United Nations Sustainable Development Summit, and the Hunger Project served as our secretariat.
Within the first year, we realized that to transform a system, we need to begin with ourselves. And we have transformed from a network of 18 international non-government organizations to hundreds of local and community-based organizations.
In 2023, we began another transition, evolving from movement to a connected global movement organization. We believe another type of organization is possible, one that is fueled by collective leadership. We have a formal governance structure like an organization, while maintaining the energy, dynamism, values-based collective action, and shared leadership of a movement.
MCLD brings together national associations in various stages of formation across 25 countries. Members, both individual and organizational, are the founding blocks of MCLD. It is the vision, collective knowledge, and resources of our members that shape our work and enable us to live our values.
At MCLD, we know that traditional development models often leave communities out of the decisions that impact them the most. That's why we embrace a transformative model, one grounded in equity, partnership, and the leadership of communities themselves.
To bring community-led development to scale everywhere it's needed, MCLD focuses on 5 strategic goals: voice and agency, community finance, good local governance, quality public services, and resilience.
Our theory of change is simple. The sustainable development goals can only be met through systemic change by shifting power and resources to accountable institutions. We do this through 2 powerful types of partnerships. One of them is the voice partnerships, where we influence policies and budgets to prioritize local leadership. We also do what is called facilitation partnerships, which strengthen community-based organizations to lead their own development.
Together, we're building a world where every voice counts and every community leads. We invite you to join us.
Thank you. So that was a little introduction to MCLD in the voice of the Secretariat team. But now we're going to go back a little bit in history to understand how did we start, right? And why did we start and how did we get here? So it gives me great pleasure to introduce John Coonrod, the founder of MCLD, and Luana Eskenazi, the Latin America and Caribbean coordinator, for a short conversation on the story of MCLD.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Hi, John. Buenos días. Bueno, espero que me escuchen bien. Y la primera pregunta que tengo para vos hoy es, ¿cómo es que deciden lanzar el MDLC?
So we started this. I wanted to start it because I had seen community-led development work. I'd seen it in Oakland, California. I'd seen it work in Burkina Faso, in India, in Bangladesh. And yet everybody who believed in it was not able to get support for it. There was no money, and there was no money because there was no evidence, because there was no advocacy. So we needed a movement to take that on.
Excelente. Y cuando lanzaron el movimiento en 2015, ¿qué visión tenían para la meta de los 10 años del MDLC?
So in terms of a 10-year plan, we could never have that. When you're trying to do the impossible, it's like climbing a mountain in the fog. All you can do is get to the next plateau and then reassess your strategy. So first of all, we had to make community-led development a thing. It was not a phrase that anyone in international development used. And we all had our own secret language for what we did. In Korea, they called it Saimwarundong, and in India, it was Gram Swaraj. And everybody had slightly different approaches, all very similar, and all beautifully fit the phrase community-led development. So the first point was to make community-led development a thing. So we had like senior officials from big agencies. We would write the speeches for them in which they would say community-led development over and over again. And then the next thing we had to do was to convince all the practitioners that this was an umbrella worth getting under, that we could all see in the principles of community-led development what was in our hearts. And so building the movement, that was the first big step. Getting the evidence out there was the first big step. Convincing donors to commit to funding it. So we achieved all those in this first 10 years. And there's still a lot more to go, obviously. So thanks, Luana.
Excelente.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Luana. So that's a little bit of why we started, how we started. And now we want to we have become. We are having slight connectivity issues with our ASL interpreter. So please bear with us if it's a little spotty. We are working on it. And for people joining just now, we have today's call in 3 languages. So we are going to constantly switch between English, French, and Spanish. If you are an English speaker, choose English. If you're a French speaker, choose French. And if you are a Spanish speaker, speak Spanish. Choose Spanish, sorry. With that, we're going to go from the history to where we are today. So one of the unique things about MCLD is our structure, because we are not just another network and organization. We chose to be a movement organization. What does that mean? And what does a movement organization look like? What is the structure that we are talking about? So it gives me great pleasure to invite Jill Lalonde, the Executive Director of One Village Partners. Jill is also the elected chair of our Global Assembly. Jill, tell us about MCLD's structure.
Thank you so much, Gunjan. And hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. I have had the privilege of serving as the first elected chair of the General Assembly, and it has truly been an honor to work with all of you through this inaugural year as the structure of MCLD has shifted. And as MCLD transitioned from being a movement to a movement organization, The task was to ensure that the new structure would reflect the values of connectedness and collective leadership. So the diagram on the screen shows how we're all connected to create the organization of the future for MCLD. You will see that the structure is made up of 4 key elements. The first, all of you here, the members, are the foundational blocks of MCLD. We have more than 3,000 members from all over the world who ensure the work is responsive to the realities in their home countries. Following, we have the national associations. Can you raise your hand if you are representing a national association? See, lots of movement. So the national associations are self-organized, self-directed, and self-governed groups of local organizations. Sometimes they are with the country offices of international NGOs. Sometimes they are within academic institutions. Sometimes they are made up of local government representatives, and sometimes with private enterprises. Every association is truly unique and is led by an elected steering committee or board. They appoint volunteer coordinators and make key decisions in an annual general meeting of members. And MCLD proudly has 25 associations that currently exist or are under formation. So the growth has been truly incredible. The Global Assembly is the apex decision-making body. This group is made up of 2 elected representatives from every MCLD national association. The Global Assembly provides strategy and direction to MCLD. Its function is to draft policies on matters that affect all national associations while honoring the principle of subsidiarity. And finally, last but not least, the Global Secretariat is the coordinating body. This group of Gunjan and her team facilitates collective decision-making and peer learning, provides support services, ensures compliance, safeguards the MCLD brand, and mobilizes visibility and funding for national associations and members. The Secretariat also engages in policy advocacy at the global and regional level, carries out research, builds solidarity, and ensures compliance with policy. Thank you so much, and congratulations to everybody on 10 years of incredible impact and growth.
Thank you, Jill. So you have now a sense of what makes us unique. When we stepped into this new structure in January last year, we said very clearly we are an experiment. We've always been an experiment, a hope and a dream, but we believe another type of organization is possible. We are all in incredibly difficult times today. The last few months have seen a lot of challenges, from loss of jobs to loss of livelihoods, from loss of life-saving medicines to loss of food supplies. We have seen official development assistance shrinking with very little notice and preparation. And there has been so much conversation around how do we step forward in this world? How do we ensure that the rights we fought for, the freedoms we fought for, the dignity that we have been fighting for continues, and we continue to march ahead. And we genuinely believe that at MCLD, we have some answers. We have some answers about what the future could look like for our communities, for our countries, for our organizations, for our sector, and for all of us. Because this is a vision that we have been co-creating for the last decade. It's not perfect. We are learning. But we know that this is a vision which is embedded in the power of collective action, collective leadership, in the belief that if we listen, intentionally listen to communities, to each other, we can drive change. And that is why we believe that the future is community-led and the future is MCLD. Because we need an organization that is built on collective action. The COVID-19 pandemic, what's happening currently with ODA assistance, has shown us that this competitive world that we have been in cannot work. We have to be connected. There is a power in the collective, right? That community is so critical. It was critical to fight the pandemic. It has been critical since time immemorial for human civilization to survive. Community is what drives us. And that is what we need to create in our sector, a community, a values-driven community, right? That is what MCLD offers. So at MCLD, for the last year and a year, we have been working with our members to develop a strategic plan that outlines our vision of the future, responding to the challenges that we see and face today. The 4 pillars I talked about earlier, practice, policy, solidarity, and self-reliance, are the 4 pillars of this strategic plan. And in today's event, we are going to learn more about and walk through each of these 4 pillars, not just for MCLD, but in the context of the world that we are in today. What do these pillars mean for us? What can we do wherever we are sitting? And we are all sitting in different spaces. I know we have people here today who are with bilaterals and multilateral agencies, with funders, with community-based organizations, with INGOs, with universities, with think tanks, with private enterprises, individuals who are just committed to this. We all occupy different spaces in the ecosystem. But each one of us has a role to play in these 4 pillars. And that is what we're going to be sharing today. So with that, we are going to continue in our journey throughout the day. We will see how we work on these 4 pillars through our youth task force, through our continuous quest for inclusion, right? And accessibility. And yes, you can see we had some challenges, but we are trying and we are learning. So one of our mantras at MCLD is we learn as we go, right? Learning by doing. And the other thing that we say in our new strategic plan and that we think the world needs right now is to remember we have to act, not just react. For too long, we've been caught in survival mode. For too long, we have just been responding and trying to stay alive. But this is the time for strategy. So with that, we are going to go back to our travels around the world. Ikatsi, Burundi.
It's Burundi.
Hi everyone. I see you.
Oh my gosh, the guy actually.
Mulimutia, Uganda. And in Uganda, they're meeting in 4 different spaces.
MCLD is not Uganda. MCLD is not Uganda. MCLD is not Uganda.
Thank you so much,
MCLD
Uganda.
Rwanda.
Thank you. I hope you can see the energy, the excitement, the commitment, the courage, the community that makes us all MCLD. And I hope you can feel that across these borders, across these spaces, wherever we are in. But we have a lot of people joining from different countries which are not having associations or meeting in person. So now we are going to take a moment for all the virtual participants. If you are able to, come online, switch on your cameras. If you are able to, switch on your mics for just a few seconds and say hello. Let's see each other together here. Hello.
Hello. Hello, hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. I'm from Burkina Faso. Hi from
Canada.
Ghana.
Hello from
Hi in
London.
Uganda.
I'm from Ethiopia. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello from Saudi. Thank you.
Hello from Nigeria.
Thank you from
Hello
Ethiopia.
from Burundi.
Thank you so much, everyone. I will now
Hi from Cameroon.
Bonjour,
Hi
from
from Pakistan.
My name is Ishan Reid.
Hello from Burundi. Amahoro. Félicitations.
Mahoro.
Hello, Umaima from Sudan. Hello.
the development of strong, accountable local governance. We've learned a few lessons on this along the way, I have to say. And I think one of the most important things that we have learned is that learning something together, something new together, requires a lot of unlearning. For the longest time, we have been taught ideas about who has knowledge, what is knowledge, where does it sit, where should power lie, what is power. Till we challenge those assumptions, till we unlearn those assumptions, we are not going to work together. We are not going to be able to create a different kind of world. And so unlearning is a key part of practice for us. Unlearning and then learning together. At MCLD, we call this nurturing serendipity. When you bring in diverse experiences, diverse knowledge, diverse wisdoms, creativity, and ideas from so many members, from so many different stakeholders, from so many countries, what emerges is so much more than the sum of all parts. That is where innovation happens. That is where change and transformation begins. And so practice for us is about not going and teaching anybody, but learning from each other, even as we keep unlearning along the way. But there is another part of community-led development and practice, and we saw it during the pandemic. We have seen this time and again, and that is the power of collective action, of community mobilizing and organizing. Unless the communities come together, we cannot have a peaceful, just, transformed society. And so practice requires intentionally doing what we can to support communities to be able to mobilize for collective action. And so with this, we are going to move to see a short video about some of the work we have done over the years in practice. After the video, we will hear from our West Africa event. The West Africa event focused on the pillar of practice. So we'll have a quick report out from Pascal Dijehosu, our West Africa coordinator on the event. And then we will move to our speakers. So first, the video.
At MCLD, practice means learning by doing and interrogating our existing ways of thinking. From our unlearning labs, where colleagues co-create knowledge and challenge assumptions together, to the CLD in Practice book published by Routledge in 2024, we are committed to the practice of community-led development. Our work in practice is evolving and grounded in community. One example is our participatory CLD assessment tool.
The year was 2019, We are the movement for community-led development, and yet we had no common understanding of what it meant to be community-led. Or how did we even know that we were truly community-led, or how different people in the community were experiencing the work that we were doing? And so over 2.5 years, 100 people from different parts of the world worked together pro bono to come to a common understanding of what did we mean by community-led development and what does it look like in practice. And thus was born the participatory CLD assessment tool, which is today available in 9 languages and is being used by INGOs, community-based organizations, local governments from Kenya to Canada.
L'outil d'évaluation participative du développement piloté par les communautés est bien plus qu'un simple mécanisme de suivi et d'évaluation. Il reflète les aspirations des communautés et favorise un véritable dialogue entre les parties prenantes. J'ai eu l'occasion de l'utiliser dans le cadre d'un programme soutenu par la coopération suisse au Bénin. Grâce à cet outil, nous avons redéfini les activités de ce projet, tout en renforçant la compréhension du DPC par les communautés. C'est un puissant levier d'apprentissage, de responsabilisation, de dialogue, de communication et de transformación social.
Esto nos desarrolló un gran conocimiento basado en todo este proceso, un conocimiento enriquecido, un conocimiento de... También se habló del tema de los derechos humanos que deben de fortalecerse de este proceso, igual el fortalecimiento del conocimiento de toda la población y la inclusión de todos los pueblos desde las diferentes organizaciones, de diferentes géneros y de diferente diversidad que sea ideológica, la tenemos aquí. El taller nos dio grandes experiencias, grandes enseñanzas y esperamos un tiempo compartir con todos.
Practically, the CLD or community-led development tool has transformed how I facilitate and also guide communities to lead their own development rather than having leading them. At the community, it is now empowering for them. They no longer wait for change, but they drive the change they desire themselves. As an organization, it has helped us to improve our planning, monitoring, and evaluation processes.
We teach in Bangladesh through the participatory community-led development approach, have learned the power of inclusivity and community-driven development. We learned better understand the local voices about 9 spatial dimensions. We saw how community-led advocacy can lead real impacts like increasing school attendance, reducing child marriages, and of course, women leadership. These lessons now shape us how we deliver and design our programs across Bangladesh.
So that's a little glimpse of the work we've been doing in the practice dimension together, the unlearning and the learning together. And now we will move to Pascal, West Africa, Benin. Pascal, tell us a little bit from the West Africa event. Bear with us, as I mentioned. We will have technical difficulties, but we will get through. So we're just waiting for Pascal from Benin to join us.
Yeah, could you hear me? No. Yes. Hello, everyone. From Benin, where I'm joining, I would like to say Mikudo Hui. Great celebration to you all. Great celebration to you, to MCLD partners, to MCLD staff, and everyone. I have the honor to share with you how we celebrate the 10th anniversary of MCLD in West Africa. Dear colleagues, dear community members, ladies and gentlemen, the West Africa regional celebration of the 10th anniversary of MCLD was an opportunity to commemorate the togetherness of diverse stakeholders coming with a oneness of vision to shift the paradigm of development and to overcome the official development assistance challenges in order to definitively co-create the resilience in communities. Then, West Africa countries enthusiastically commemorate, and we had namely Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, Niger, Central African Republic, and Cameroon joined as well. And the Global Secretariat of MCLD fully supported the celebration, joined by our colleagues and partners from all levels of representation of MCLD, and many partners around the world who brought in such hearted energy and commitment to celebrate and advance our shared vision. The theme of our West Africa celebration is the practice of community-led development for the resilience of communities in West Africa. The opening message of the Global Secretary of MCLD, Gunjan Veda, and the keynote of the celebration addressed by Madame Zanu Celestine, and the various presentations from National Association coordinators largely disclose the content of the same. Let me sum up the event in these words. Resilience in communities requires, in terms of strategy, to mainly strengthen the capacity of community-led development and strong, accountable local governance. This encompasses a first and crucial phase of mobilization and organization of communities in order to raise awareness on their rights and duty and their collective strength. This is needed to enhance community engagement and participation through collective leadership. We could mention in that regard just some examples. Community mobilization in Nigeria to reduce election violence, as it was stated through the presentation of Nigeria National Association. The 16 days activism in Togo and Nigeria to reduce gender-based violence. Campaign on superfood in Benin and many other achievements in West Africa countries. The practice of the community-led development encompasses also the facilitation of multi-stakeholders platform acting together to develop sustainable funding model and supporting accountable local governance, enabling sustainable development through the implementation of various thematics. The practice of community-led development encompasses also the need to strengthen stakeholders' capacity, fostered by a proactive mindset, fostered also by a resilient-oriented mindset. In that regard, it's crucial to build the skill of communities, local governments, and national association in participatory governance, sustainable development, community-led action, community-led monitoring and evaluation. This being said, the West Africa celebration purposely emphasizes on the participatory community-led development assessment tool, where are fully embodied the basic characteristics for community mobilization, for the facilitation of multi-stakeholders platform, for the development of sustainable funding model, for stakeholders capacity strengthening. Once again, I would like to appeal for a widespread adoption and dissemination of the participatory community-led development assessment tool for it to become the mainstream of all stakeholders and all communities who are willing to make resilience a reality in their community, in their localities. Thank you so much. Gunjan, please, over to you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Pascal. So the one thing you would have guessed about MCLD by now, we love our participatory CLD assessment tool. I cannot go a day when I don't hear about it from some member or the other. So thank you, Benny and West Africa, for bringing it to life. And now we are going to, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Roland Stout. Roland is the president and CEO of the Hunger Project. For those of you who know a little bit about the history of MCLD, you do know that we were hosted by the Hunger Project for all these years till 1st January 2024 when we became fully independent. And Roland's was there in Malawi right at the beginning when MCLD started. Roland's, over to you.
Thank you very much, Gunjan, and greetings, colleagues all over the world. Wow, what a great day. A decade of collective action. We know that when we rise together, we can shape a future far greater than any one of us could build alone. Now, I would like to speak to 3 points today. First, the challenge and power of collective action. I know I am speaking to the converted already. Collective action is not the easiest path. It's the courage, it's the courageous one, and it demands that we really slow down, listen, navigate differences, and shift from control to co-creation. And sometimes it can feel messy, unpredictable, and even frustrating. But when we stay the course, we rediscover our shared humanity. We remember that people are not passive recipients of aid, but the key agents of their own change. That kind of belief can't be imposed in people. It must be built through collective action, rooted in dignity, mutual respect, and the depth of the truth of our interconnectedness. Second, why did we start MCLD? You mentioned, Gunjan, that, okay, Roland was there, was the on the first day when we started in Malawi, and then John spoke about the inspiration and then the launch in the in New York at the UN. So in 2015, the Hunger Project and 18 other founding organizations launched this movement at the United Nations. We did it to strengthen civil society at the grassroots level, because civil society is where the will of the people finds voice, where shared values turn into action, and where communities come together, not just to survive, but to shape their future. And we all know civil society is not here to replace governments. Civil society is meant to strengthen it. So when citizens organize and communities mobilize, we create a force that uplifts governance and calls it toward equity and transparency. And that takes me to my third point, which is the last one. Does CLD truly deliver impact? We hear people ask that question. In Bangladesh, the trained volunteers we work with, we call them animators. They lead civic education in schools and courtyards, showing citizens what's possible when the government works with them. In Uganda, civil society pushed for improved maternal health supplements. And at the Nutrition for Growth Summit, the government committed to making the switch, thanks to the advocacy efforts that many of you on this call helped to lead. In Mexico, we work with partner organizations across civil society to advance the rights of women, youth, and indigenous communities. Now, colleagues, when civil society thrives, self-reliance becomes possible. And at the Hunger Project, we have seen 86 communities, we call them epicenters, which is a cluster of villages working together. We have seen 86 of those epicenters across Africa transform themselves to now live in self-reliance. These communities reach 1.4 million people, 52% of them women. Now, in Burkina Faso, just as one community was nearing self-reliance, when they were just about to declare themselves self-reliance, violence forced them to flee. But they did not wait for outside rescue. They reformed their epicenter committee. They restarted their savings groups and built new livelihoods together. That is a living testament to the power of collective action. And so, in closing, ladies and gentlemen, this is the world we are working toward, where communities are not dependent, but determined, not divided, but united, where civil society is vibrant, governments are responsive, and collective action drives lasting change. Let me be quick to mention here that ending hunger isn't a dream. It's a decision. It begins when we trust in people's potential, invest in their leadership, and stand with them as partners in possibility. Because when people come together, boldly and collectively, there is no limit to what they can achieve. And I dare to submit today, during this celebration, that the question in this moment is not whether community-led delivers self-reliance. It's whether we are bold enough to raise our hands and say yes to community-led as a way of being. And so, thank you, all of you. Thank you, Gunjan. Thank you, MCLD family, for hosting this event today. It is wonderful to reconnect, especially now in this moment we're in, and celebrate how far we have come in the past 10 years. Happy 10th anniversary to all of you, and congratulations to all of us on this call. Thank you, and back to you, Gunjan.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for this really powerful words. Ending hunger isn't a dream, it's a decision. And a just, peaceful world is not a dream, it is a decision, and it begins with each one of us. So we're now going to move to Benin again, to Dr. Aurelian Atidegla, who is the president of PASIB, a group of civil society organizations committed to peace in Benin. Dr. Atidegla, please. Dr. Atidegla will be speaking in French, but we will have English interpretation available. We do not have sound yet.
No entanto, quem decide quais medidas compensatórias são implementadas depende dos mecanismos ou os conselhos diretores do Banco
We hear you
Multilateral.
now. Okay, we cannot hear Dr. Atidegla. Pascal, can you please
Okay,
have the
let's
audio?
move like this.
Ça peut aller?
Yes,
Yes.
we hear you now.
Alors,
Thank you.
très bien. L'avenir est piloté par la communauté. Pour moi, c'est une vision très ambitieuse, mais qui se réalise déjà dans la mesure où, dans le contexte que nous avons traversé ces 20 dernières années, contexte marqué par tout le débat qui a eu lieu sur l'architecture de l'aide internationale, marqué aussi par un changement de paradigme en ce qui concerne le passage de l'efficacité de l'aide à l'efficacité du développement, on comprend bien qu'il s'agit d'un défi majeur, à savoir le développement efficace. On parle de développement, mais dans quelle mesure ce développement est-il efficace? Je crois que nous devons d'abord comprendre l'efficacité du développement comme ce type de développement qui se définit par l'impact des actions menées en faveur du développement. Et ces impacts-là doivent être directement observés dans la santé, l'éducation, bref, le bien-être des populations. Tant que ces changements ne sont pas observés dans la vie des populations, il n'y a pas de développement efficace. Autrement dit, l'efficacité du développement repose sur la responsabilisation des communautés pour conduire ce processus qui est à la fois humain et social, avec des facettes multiples, permettant d'assurer durablement le bien-être des populations pauvres, des populations vulnérables et marginalisées. Alors, dans un tel contexte, on comprend parfaitement que le mouvement pour un développement piloté par les communautés s'inscrit parfaitement dans cette perspective parce que on comprend qu'il y a toute la problématique de la redevabilité qui donne le pouvoir aux populations d'exercer leurs responsabilités et d'avoir la capacité d'interpeller tous ceux-là qui ont des responsabilités en matière de pilotage de politique, de stratégie, etc. C'est, à mon avis, une vertu que notre mouvement essaye de socialiser en promouvant l'engagement individuel et collectif des communautés, engagement fondé sur un certain nombre de principes que je veux rappeler en quelques points. Un des principes essentiels, c'est l'obtention des résultats concrets. Alors, quand on dit approche de gestion axée sur les résultats et développement, c'est justement ce type de changement qu'on peut observer dans la vie des personnes. C'est de ça qu'il s'agit. Le deuxième principe, qui est d'ailleurs lié à ce premier principe, c'est l'adoption d'une approche axée sur les besoins locaux. C'est cela également qui met les communautés au centre du pilotage du développement. Le troisième principe, c'est l'utilisation des ressources, l'utilisation efficace et même efficiente des ressources. On est dans un environnement où les ressources se raréfient et on a besoin de produire plus de résultats. Donc, cela nous invite à adopter des approches, des outils qui, à la fois, économisent ces ressources et permettent de réaliser les objectifs que nous souhaitons. Quatrième principe, c'est la synergie entre les acteurs. Il y a des outils qui sont développés, il y a des meilleures pratiques qui ont fait leurs preuves. Il faut utiliser ce mouvement pour les mettre à l'échelle de manière à ce que le plus grand nombre de communautés puissent en profiter. Le cinquième principe, c'est la flexibilité et l'adaptabilité. Nous devons faire preuve de flexibilité, apprendre par la pratique et accepter de faire quelquefois des erreurs pour en tirer les enseignements et enfin la transparence et la durabilité. Voilà pour moi 6 principes qui s'articulent bien avec les 4 piliers de notre plan stratégique et en développant ces différents principes, on se trouve en parfaite adéquation avec ce type de développement piloté par les communautés. Je voudrais conclure en disant que le véritable développement auquel on aspire, c'est d'abord un concept multidimensionnel qui dépasse la simple croissance économique. Il englobe une série d'objectifs et de valeurs qui visent à améliorer la qualité de vie, l'équité, le bien-être social des individus et des communautés. Le développement conduit par les communautés repose donc sur une approche participative et inclusive qui vise à mobiliser les ressources locales et à renforcer l'autonomie des communautés. En plaçant les besoins et les aspirations des membres au cœur du processus, cette démarche peut bien évidemment conduire à des changements durables et significatifs. Je vous remercie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atudekla. Thank you for sharing the values, the principles, and how to actually put CLD into practice. We are now going to round off the practice segment with my colleague Cassidy Miller, who's going to tell us a little bit about what is MCLD planning to do under practice going forward. Cassidy, over to you.
Yeah. So we have come a long way together, from strengthening capacity through co-creation to developing tools like the participatory CLD assessment tool and our learning labs. We've always focused on challenging existing paradigms and co-creating a better practice together. That will continue. But at its heart, community-led development starts with the communities mobilizing and organizing themselves. As civic spaces shrink globally and anti-rights movements gain momentum, we will have a renewed focus on community organizing and mobilizing. So what are we planning to do as we move forward in this new practice? We will facilitate communities in coming together and taking collective action through our members. We will encourage local citizens' assemblies to co-create policies that truly reflect local realities. We will invest in grassroots leadership, from local leadership academies that train community actors in participatory governance using CLD tools, to local forums that support community leadership. We will support and share community-rooted counter-narratives to fight misinformation. We will continue to bring together civil society, the private sector, and local governments through multi-stakeholder platforms to learn and shape practice together. To truly practice community-led development, we must reshape our partnerships, foster local economies, and build sustainable funding models rooted in justice and equity. From climate action to social entrepreneurship, this is about transforming how we think, lead, and act together. Let's commit to enhancing community engagement, supporting our members' growth, and building a global mentoring network where experience meets fresh energy. This isn't just strategy, this is a movement.
Thank you so much, Cassidy. As Cassidy reminded us, this isn't a strategy, this is a movement. With that, we have rounded off the practice segment, and it's once again time to travel to other countries. So, bienvenue, Central African Republic.
Oui, bonjour, 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 bonjour. Bonjour. Les collègues disent bonjour, non? À la base, on dit bonjour.
Bonjour, ça va, bonjour.
Bonjour. Akaro, Nigeria. Akaro.
Hey.
Ba za ku yi magana ba a karo? A karo?
Thank you so much. See, the energy is contagious. But sometimes the elements come in the way. So we were going to go to Ethiopia next, Salam, Ethiopia, but we know they have major connectivity issues and rains. And so they have sent us some pictures of the people together. We can't zoom in live, but we're trying what we can with the photos. So Salam, Ethiopia.
Hi, salam, Gunjan. Yeah, because we've been around to the grassroots level to celebrate together with our communities. The place that you have been once before while you were here in Ethiopia. So it's really very hard to get a very good connection. Sorry for that. And anyways, we are very much happy and we're very glad to be part of this celebration. And on behalf of our communities, there at grassroots levels, we have come across to see the very changes and achievements. So we have got a very, fruitful feedbacks from our communities as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abade.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ethiopia. We know you're there with us in spirit and we're there with you. Thank you for sharing the pictures with us. Okay, with that, we are going to move to our next segment, which is on policy. A lot of us in our different spheres of work, be it at the national level, at the regional level, at the global level, have been doing policy advocacy from a long time. Policy advocacy about gender, gender rights, inclusion, human rights, locally led development, name it. But when it comes to policy advocacy, it is not just the content of the policy that matters. What matters is whose voices are shaping that policy. And one of the important lessons for us has been to ensure that community voices, local voices, different stakeholder voices are part of the policy process. Because only when policies are crafted by listening to different voices and communities do we have policies that are truly responsive to people's needs. At the end of the day, MCLD is about ensuring every person has a voice in decisions that affect their lives. But having policies, as we all know, is not enough. We've had commitments after commitments, right? Especially if we just think of the last few years, think about locally led development, the grand bargain, the donor statement. We've had so many commitments, but we know that unless we monitor commitments, unless there is mutual accountability on commitments, they remain just that, an intention, which does not translate into practice. And so while it is important to have policy advocacy, and at all levels, it is equally important that we have accountability and mutual accountability, because again, policies to be truly implemented have a role. Each one of us has a role in that. So with that, we're going to take another quick look at this brief video about MCLD's work on policy. And then we will go to East Africa to hear from Steve Ogutu, our East Africa Regional Coordinator, about the event there.
MCLD is committed to enabling policies that support community-led development and ensuring local voices are at decision-making tables. At the global level, we have focused on language accessibility and facilitating spaces for bilateral and multilateral organizations to directly engage with local organizations. And we had an impact. USAID was beginning to bring out policies in multiple languages. Local voices shaped indicators like the Locally Led Development Progress Indicator. We organized consultations to bring mission teams into direct contact with CBOs and local organizations.
Organizing the USAID consultation in Malawi was a rare opportunity to put local indigenous institutions,
CBOs, young people from the community in the front seat of development. And hearing the voices for the first time was a game changer. And I believe that a lot was set into motion and the change we need was on track.
In 2019, we began a campaign to recognize the agency of communities and remove the term beneficiaries from the development lexicon. Many NGOs committed to do so, and in 2024, USAID sent a memo advising staff against using the term.
Pues al momento de escuchar beneficiaria como persona, uno se siente que solo espera algo que le van a traer como un regalo. Solo esperar las indicaciones que le dan, qué es lo que va a hacer, cómo lo va a hacer en el proceso del proyecto.
In 2024, we began to explore ways to hold funders and ourselves accountable to commitments on community-led development.
Thank you for starting the community-led development school. We have picked up well, and I can tell you that whatever you envisioned out here in Makweli has borne fruit, and you will be proud of us in a few years to come. And also let you know that everybody else is coming to Makweli to check on what you are doing with the school. So be proud that in 10 years you have given birth to a baby called Makweli, School for Evolution, and it is going to spread the message to the whole world on the importance of community-led development. And congratulations once again.
Going forward, we will continue to advocate for policies that support widespread community-led development and accessibility, but with a renewed emphasis on accountability.
Okay, and now we're going to head straight to East Africa to hear from Steve Agutu about the East Africa event. Steve, over to you.
Great, thank you, Gunjan. I'm joining you all from Nairobi, Kenya, in East Africa, and here to share a report out about a very powerful event we had yesterday for the East Africa MCLD at 10 celebration that had very, very powerful speakers, including our very own founder, Dr. John Kundrod, the immediate former governor of Makueni County, Professor Kivuta Kibwana, and of course, our global secretary, Gunjan Veda, and most importantly, our members, over 100 participants from different organizations joined us yesterday to just celebrate the milestones that we have achieved so far in the region in strengthening the practice of CLD. We had lots of impact of our work in countries like Ethiopia, where they are just from concluding a study on participatory budget making process, and that study produced some very exciting insights that they are using to begin to strengthen a public policy within Ethiopia. We then moved to Uganda, and in Uganda there we have been doing a lot of work in terms of advancing food and nutrition policies that are inclusive. And then we moved down to Burundi, where our members there have been involved in championing gender mainstreaming. They're involved in reviewing and pushing for policies that are designed toward eliminating gender-based violence, targeting women and girls and creating a safer space for women and girls in their country. And then after that, we moved to Rwanda. And in Rwanda, we learned about the exciting work that they're doing there to mobilize civil society organizations. And they are collaborating with the government there to set up structures that embeds community-led development in their policies and programs. And then we then came to Kenya. And in Kenya, like has been referenced by Gunjan, we are doing a lot of work in terms of strengthening devolution. We, in 2022, 2023, launched what we call the Kenya School for Devolution and Community-Led Development, which is the first in Kenya and the first in the region. And it's serving as a reservoir to build capacity of all the actors within the development ecosystem. We are talking about the government, development players, to better practice CLD. In addition to that, we are also training a range of civil society organizations who are in our membership, to be able to, advocate, for issues, for human rights abuses and other issues of development that affect our communities. And from yesterday's event, one message was clear, that we have to continue acting with courage in the region, and broadly speaking across the 25 countries where we are, to ensure that community-led development is institutionalized by governments, by development partners, by funders, and all the actors within the development ecosystem. And I think with that, I'll leave it there. And thank you so very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Steve. And again, I hope this is giving you a sense of how powerful the regional events were, emphasizing the importance in East Africa of working with local governments, of strengthening accountable local governance, because governments, civil society is not here to replace governments. Our job is to ensure that the governments are responsive to citizens' needs. We are now going to have a message from Burik Sancher, the Assistant Secretary General for Policy Coordination at the UN Department for Economic and Social Affairs.
Distinguished participants, I'm honored to join you in celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Movement for Community-Led Development. Similarly, at the United Nations, we are celebrating our 80th anniversary. And while we celebrate this remarkable milestone, global efforts to achieve the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals are facing significant headwinds. As the Secretary General recently noted, with less than 5 years to go to the 2030 deadline, we are facing nothing short of a development emergency. In large measure, this is due to deepening global fragilities, significant declines in financing for development, and the growing debt distress for some of the most vulnerable countries. Persistent inequalities, prolonged conflicts, and the escalating climate crisis have severely hindered progress towards our shared aspirations. In his recent assessment of global SDG progress, the Secretary General warned that progress falls far short of the scale or speed needed. And he stressed that urgent action is required to reverse alarming trends and safeguard hard-won gains. In this context, local and regional authorities, as well as communities themselves, are increasingly recognized as pivotal actors. With at least 65% of SDG targets directly linked to local action, community engagement is not just beneficial, it's essential to fulfilling the ambitions of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And that makes today's gathering all the more timely. I wish to commend the Movement for Community-Led Development for its commitment to transforming traditional development approaches by placing communities facing hunger and poverty at the center of change. At a time when all efforts are needed to rescue the SDGs, the engagement of local and community actors has never been more urgent. Through its regional chapters and national associations, MCLD plays a transformative role, providing important resources that empower community-led development worldwide. By fostering collaboration and peer learning you strengthen the capacity of local communities to define and achieve their own aspirations, ensuring that development is truly inclusive and sustainable. This grassroots approach not only drives meaningful change at the community level, it also enhances SDG implementation at national, regional, and global scales. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2023 SDG Summit Political Declaration and the 2024 Pact for the Future reaffirmed sustainable development as a fundamental pillar of multilateral cooperation. These frameworks are instrumental in shaping future efforts, ensuring commitments under the 2030 Agenda remain resolute and accelerating progress towards the SDGs. However, achieving the SDGs is not the responsibility of governments alone. It's a shared duty, one that requires collaboration among nations and across multilateral institutions, the private sector, academia, and most crucially, communities and civil society. To get back on track, accelerate actions and drive change, I encourage all of you to fully engage with the upcoming 4th International Conference on Financing for Development in Sevilla in Spain, and the 2nd World Summit for Social Development that will be held in Qatar in November. Thank you.
So, achieving the SDGs is not just a responsibility of governments, it is on all of us. And with that, we are going to see about what MCLD is planning to do about this responsibility. I want to welcome my colleague Nellie Mecklenburg.
Thank you, Gunjan. As we've heard in this segment, over the last 10 years, MCLD and its members have shifted the policy landscape. Community-led development, devolution, localization, these are agendas that have gained immense traction globally and have changed our expectations for what development and international assistance look like. And that is in no small part because of the advocacy, the strategy, and the energy of the organizations and champions within our movement. But as we move forward, as Gunjan said, we recognize that it's not enough to advocate for new policies when existing ones aren't being implemented. Instead, we have to make sure that governments, funders, multilateral institutions, and civil society, in short, all stakeholders, are accountable to the promises they're making. So over the next 5 years, MCLD will be focusing on making sure policies deliver and that commitments turn into action. We'll create mutual accountability platforms, communications campaigns, and spaces for dialogue so communities can monitor public commitments and narrow the gap between policy promises and lived realities. We will make sure that MCLD, its national associations, and its members are represented in key decision-making forums and strengthen our collective capacity to advocate at national, local, and regional and international levels for inclusion, equity, peace, and human rights. Thank you, Gunjan.
Thank you, Nellie. So that is policy and what we will be doing in policy going together, forward together. Now it's once again time to travel. Couché, Sierra Leone. Uraho, Rwanda. We see you. We see you. Bienvenidos, Honduras.
Hello, Gunjan.
I think they're trying to unmute. Yes. Yay! Oh, okay.
Buenas tardes en diferentes partes del globo terráqueo. Queremos primero felicitar al fundador del MLC por esa idea brillante y que la ha extendido por todo el mundo global. Nosotros queremos felicitar a los 10 años del movimiento liderado por las comunidades, donde creamos esperanzas, donde creamos la solidaridad y esperamos pues que esto desde las comunidades podamos construir todo lo necesario para luchar por los de abajo y siempre desde abajo levantar nuestra bandera de lucha. Un saludo y felicidades a todos y empiezan a empezar.
Thank you, Honduras. Gracias. It was good to see you.
Hello, bonjour.
Okay, I know there was an issue with volume, but at least we got to see our friends in Honduras together. All right, we're now going to move into the third pillar, the third segment, and that is self-reliance. So today, more than ever, there is a recognition of the need for self-reliance. But what does self-reliance mean for communities, for countries, for organizations? What does it look like? For us, we believe that self-reliance begins with intentional care. Because when we are tired, we rest, we don't give up, right? And we need that rest to take care of ourselves, of our organizations, of the communities that we are a part of. And that is why at MCLD, we have what we call a relay race model. One person is not going to take us to the finish line. We do it in turns. We give ourselves time to rest. We lean into each other. And that is for us what will lead us to self-reliance. But there is one more key. We've heard of a lot of things. We've heard of domestic resource mobilization. We hear of remittances. We hear of different ways of, getting funding when we think about self-reliance. But there is one thing that we all have, and that is our commitment, our ideas, our knowledge, and our energy. So for MCLD, self-reliance is about leaning into that. And it's also about being comfortable with failure. Because learning is a journey. We are an experiment, and we knew there was no guarantee of success, but here we are, 10 years down the line. So self-reliance requires us to be comfortable with the process of learning and with the process of failing. We are now going to see a quick short video on MCLD's take and work on self-reliance. And then we will move to Southern Africa, which hosted the self-reliance event. And we will hear from Yevo Gondwe, our Southern Africa coordinator, Jacob Feary, and Yolam Nagite. But first, the video.
For MCLD, self-reliance begins with building on our resources, and microgrants help to do just that. For instance, in Nigeria, with a microgrant of just $5,000, members reached 19 million people to prevent election violence. Because this was something members wanted to do, they used the funding to strategize and pool their own resources, knowledge, connections, influence, ideas, and even money to do the work. That is the power of a collective.
This anniversary is coming at a time that our effort is making great impact. One of the very important assignments that SAGDIC took was a sensitization against electoral violence in Nigeria, creating awareness on the need for violent-free election, which we did. These exercises cover over 200 communities, and we reach millions of Nigerians. I am optimistic that with greater collaboration and determination and support from each other, we will have a prosperous and peaceful world.
This inspired members in Sierra Leone to do the same.
So in 2023, we are now restricted some of $5,000 to village partners for implementation of peaceful election across Sierra Leone. The $5,000 was shared equally among partners, and 36 live radio programs were then on 54 communities who are targeted as a result of it. That's fairly low.
The support given for the peace education was timely because it enhanced our awareness raising before, during, and after the 2023 elections. It also enabled us to educate the citizens about the voting patterns and for them to also accept the transition after reading of the results.
In Malawi, members used the micro grant to create a radio show to address vaccine hesitancy, and it was so successful that the government requested to partner.
In 2021, we led an initiative where we involved 3 individuals, a Dr. Mike Gisemu, a Dr. Esther Chirwa, and a Professor Adam Mula. These 3 individuals worked with us to do a broadcast throughout the country in letting the people of Malawi know about the COVID-19 vaccine, which we are very proud of, where we supported the government initiatives in making sure that the people of Malawi were aware of the COVID-19 vaccine and to be able to be committed to getting the vaccine at hospitals.
So you saw the power of collective action and how it fuels self-reliance, where a small microgrant can go such a long way in having impact. We are now going to move to Southern Africa. Yevo, Jacob, and Yolom, over to you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to share with you the key highlights of our Southern Africa regional celebrations. I had amazing speakers joining from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Malawi, Botswana. And let me tell you, the Southern Africa is a growing movement, and we hope to move to the other regions across. But national associations in Malawi and Zambia, which are more established, they have been working hard to foster self-reliance within the region. And some of the challenges that were highlighted were issues of climate change, as well as issues of violence, which are hindering national associations from fostering self-reliance. However, national associations are using community-led approaches, including the VSL approach, which is an approach that mobilizes communities into savings and loans groups. And now they're doing small-scale businesses as a community, as well as at individual level in Malawi and Zambia. I pass it over to Jacob to share some of the highlights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yeo. As she has highlighted, we also involved the youth task force members who emphasized on the need for the movement and all our partners to prioritize youth involvement and participation in development activities at all levels. The key message was nothing for the youth without the youth. Secondly, the other key message was that we all have resources. As we sit in this meeting, each one of us has resources that we can rely on in order to advance the MCLD agenda. Therefore, we are not only referring to financial resources when we talk of resources, we are referring to our skills, expertise, and knowledge, and all that we have that we can contribute to the movement. So these were the 2 key messages from the youth as well as the members from our meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Malawi. And yes, we do have a youth task force to make sure that the voices of the youth are part of our agenda and shape our agenda going forward. With that, we are now going to move to our speakers for the segment It gives me great pleasure to introduce and welcome Peter Loghorn, the President and CEO of the Conrad and Hilton Foundation. For those of you who may not know this, the Hilton Foundation was the first foundation to step in to support MCLD when we were making our transition. And then we will move all the way to Sri Lanka to hear from Vinaya Ariratna, the president of the Sarvadesh Ramadana movement, who have really shown what self-reliance looks like in a movement. But first, over to Peter.
Thank you, Gunjan. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. I'm very glad to speak with you today and to celebrate MCLD in 10 exciting and encouraging years. Permit me, if you will, to start with a personal story that I think resounds with the power of community self-reliance and agency. In the 1990s, I spent 8 years working in Mali for an INGO focused on child well-being. And Mali had signed the World Declaration of Education for All, promising to get all of its children into primary and secondary school. They were spending 25% of the national budget on education, but getting only 20% of the primary school age kids into school. Country of 10,000 villages, only 2,000 schools. The community had no real role, and our INGO was not much better. In a district of 200 villages, we were building one school a year, so it would have taken 2 centuries and not 10 years to get to education for all. The government blamed the situation on low demand, but we were not sure. So we spent 4 months going from village to village, asking folks how could we make this work, and how could we get all your kids into school? They said, yes, we will do it if we can build schools in our communities. And we worked together on the hypothesis that every community has within itself the financial and human resources to start and manage a school. We started that year with 4 communities to establish schools, and after 8 years, we had helped 800 communities establish schools, increasing the number of primary schools in Mali by 40%. With gender parity, they were self-financed, and they were sustained long after donor funding, external donor funding came in. The communities had accomplished what the government could not or did not prioritize in practice. So this grounded me in locally led development and the strengths of community-led development. So fast forward to now at the Hilton Foundation. As Gunjan said, we are deeply committed to locally led development, reflecting our core values and our commitment to human dignity. We set an internal target that 25% of our international funding should go directly to local actors, including networks. And I'm pleased to share we've surpassed this milestone, and we're at 35% now. This represents a whole of organization commitment to shifting our funding from working to streamline grant applications, identifying more local partners, and changing our risk profile. For us, self-reliance is a foundational principle of locally led development, meaning that communities should possess the agency, the resources, and the capacity to shape their own development trajectories. And in today's global context, self-reliance and locally led development are more critical than ever to ensure that civil society can continue to operate, to adapt, and to respond to community needs. Local organizations are uniquely positioned to navigate complex and evolving environments, but only if they are equipped with the necessary resources and autonomy. Supporting local civil society is not only the right thing to do, it's both strategic and essential. Community self-reliance is amplified when supported by independent civil society organizations and networks, and when governed by capable, responsive local governments. Strong local ecosystems are essential to self-reliance, with each actor playing a vital role. One key approach is to support local networks as they chart their paths towards sustainability. So at the Hilton Foundation, we invest in peer networks, such as the West African Civil Society Institute, or WACSI, which hosts the Reimagining the INGO, or RINGO effort, because we recognize that systemic transformation is necessary to reinforce community ownership and realize the vision of locally led development. We are proud to have been, as Gunja noted, the first foundation to support MCLD when it transitioned from a movement to a movement organization, demonstrating that a new kind of organization is possible. Our support was driven not only by the impact of MCLD's work, but also by our belief that meaningful change requires courage. The courage to back bold visions and to back those who dare to forge new paths. MCLD's vision exemplifies the power of collective leadership. The Hilton Foundation believes in the strength of community-rooted organizations. No organization can thrive in isolation in today's interconnected world. This is why we value organizations like MCLD, which unite diverse local networks to drive collective action. Thank you so much, and congratulations, MCLD.
Peter, thank you so much for your partnership. And, I'm very thrilled to hear about the 35% because it is so important. And, we've been talking time and again about accountability. So I am so glad to hear that Hilton is doing it. Thank you. Okay, with that, we are going to move to Sri Lanka. Vinaya.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gunjan, for inviting me. Greetings from Sri Lanka to all of you. So I represent the Sarvodaya Shramadana movement of Sri Lanka, which is a grassroots development organization with a history of more than 4 decades of promoting integrated and holistic community development in more than 15,000 village communities in Sri Lanka. Now, when it comes to self-reliance, for us, the foundation of self-reliance is what we call ideological self-reliance. We believe in a certain philosophy, a vision. So we will not compromise on that vision of integrated holistic development. So it is a model of development that is based on spiritual, moral, and cultural values. And based on that foundation, we try to fulfill basic needs of the community. Social, economic, and political dimensions are covered in that. So we rely on this vision or ideology, which then leads us organically to other forms of accountability that we all who subscribe to MCLD philosophy and vision identifies and promotes within our network. So over the years, our work on the ground has led to an evolving to evolve a 5-stage village development model, which more accurately is a process that a rural and community, rural and urban community connects to the movement very organically and naturally. So we believe the first stage of self-reliance is really to lay what we call the psychosocial infrastructure. Our mindset has to change. Our self-reliance starts with our own belief and our own transformation. And then that is the first stage of village development where we mobilize the community to fulfill an identified need. It may be a physical need like constructing a road, access road to the village, a water scheme, or some project for the children. In the process, we bring the local resources. So it's not an external assistance coming to the community. It's not a way to just transfer resources, but then bringing out the potential, the resources that are there within the community in the form of volunteerism. And then only you go to the next stage of organizing the community in groups of children, women, and youth, and elders, and farmers, and so on. So that will lead to an organization, a community-based organization, which will be the one which drives the community development process forward, that we call the 3rd stage of village development. And we identify what we call 10 basic human needs. It includes environment, water, sanitation, food, healthcare, communication, energy, and so on. So here we try to build the confidence in the community by bringing the voluntary spirit and also the local resources. So also we mobilize resources from outside, but the outside resources do not make dependence in the community. So then only when this strong foundation of a community ownership is established, that we go on to economic empowerment work, savings and credit programs, income generation activities, youth enterprises, women's enterprises, and so on, which will strengthen the villagers' own financial self-reliance. And then we also look at the principles of MCLD, which also include accountability in terms of governance, in terms of communication, and in terms of financial accountability. All that is ensured by this legally incorporated village society, the CBO, community-based organization. Then we are able to systematically look at what are the other needs of the community and try to fulfill these 10 basic human needs, which will lead to a community becoming what we call, what John referred to at the beginning, a Gram Swaraj village, a self-governing village. So here, what the whole process is from the beginning, starting with visionary self-reliance to all the other forms of self-reliance, which will make a community resilient to both internal shocks, which comes from probably having to face natural disasters. We are a country which is subjected to natural disasters very often. Even now, we are having heavy rain, and I'm disturbed by the sound of the rain, and then flooding and also landslides. So the community is prepared to face them. So the first responders also come from the community. So that will lead to that community to be totally self-reliant in all dimensions. Then it's able to also help and assist the neighboring communities to be leading to become entities of self-sustainability and sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vinia, for sharing some of the lessons from Sarvadeh with us. We will now be hearing about what MCLD is planning to do on self-reliance. I just want to remind everybody that, you know, we have a lot of moving pieces. We haven't been able to, you know, have everybody speak as we would love to, but the chat is active, it's open. Please continue to engage and create the community and lean into this community. With that, I'm going to invite Anne-Marie King from the Catania Women's Development Association in Sierra Leone, a founding member of the Sierra Leone MCLD Association, who happens to be sitting next to me in Washington, D.C. right now. So I'm going to invite Anne-Marie to share with us what MCLD thinks of in the future under self-reliance.
Kushe Unukabo. That is our own greeting in Sierra Leone. And as we talk, I want to remember my colleagues, because right now, Sierra Leone is suffering from monkeypox, seriously affecting, especially in the Western Oba and across the country. But our team are gathered today in Kenema. Right now, from all over the country, they are representing us. Cabo to you all, my colleagues. Coming back to... As we see, self-reliance is critical, not just for MCLD, but for all of us who are working towards a better world. At MCLD, we are going to focus on 5 things going towards to enable this. 1, we know we are a new type of organization, but for any organization to succeed, we need strong governance processes and mechanisms. Our Global Assembly has already laid the foundation for this. We will continue this work both at the National Association and global levels. Number 2, community-led development means mutual accountability, which we have all had today. Many speakers have spoken about this. And we will intentionally set systems in place to ensure this. We will look, number 3, we will look beyond traditional funding models at not just domestic resource mobilization, but also alternate models to sustain collective action. Number 4, and in the spirit of solidarity, we will share the lessons we learn. And finally, number 5, of all of us, the communities we are a part of and our organizations are dealing with a lot of stress and trauma. We will focus on care and well-being spaces for our members. Actually, in Sierra Leone, we have been doing this self-reliance thing, although we also want to thank One Village partner who have been really leading us. One Village partner is the chair for Sierra Leone, and Mafo is the deputy chair. We have set our board members, and we have the coordinator and all the rest of it. And also want to let you know that when we started with self-reliance because we used to come from afar, funding our own transportation before later one village partner comes in. And today, because of our exemplary lives and exemplary activities, many organizations have come on board and many are still having interest to join. So I want to thank the founders for here and we the founders in our different countries and all the speakers today. I'm really impressed and I want to thank God that I'm here in person to commemorate this particular day. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. So that was self-reliance and how we see self-reliance. Now it's once again time to travel around the world. We're going to go back to Rwanda because they had a message, but they had technical issues. So let's go back to Rwanda. Muraho, Rwanda.
Hello to everyone. This is Rwanda team. Muraho. Hello,
Yeah.
we are greeting you in Kinyarwanda language. I don't know if you know it. So, but we also, the Rwanda team, were very delighted to participate in this fruitful day of celebrating MCLD 10th anniversary. Thank you very much.
Bienvenidos, Colombia. Oh, they have balloons.
Hola, Colombia.
Oh, and the balloons. Thank you for bringing the color and the festivities. And now we are going to move to the US, New York and DC.
Yay.
Well, thank you. And thank you for traveling around the world with us to meet our members. With that, we are going to move to our final segment for today's event, and that is on solidarity. If you are part of our Latin America and Caribbean event, if you've been a part of MCLD, if you are from Africa, if you're from Asia, does not matter which part of the world you're from, the concept of solidarity has been ingrained into our cultures, into ancestral wisdom, be it Abhyayala in Latin America, Ubuntu in Africa, Vasudevai Kutumbakam, as we call it in India. The world is our family. We all know that throughout history, change has never been brought about by individuals. It is the collective, it is the power of social movements, of people coming together that changes the course of history. And what we are trying to do is change the course of history. We are trying to bring about a world which is different, a world which is equal, a world which is just, a world which is peaceful. And that world cannot be built without any of us. I remember when I was a kid in India, we had a television show which used to come on, an advertisement. It was a story which I have heard across many cultures multiple times, the story of the birds and the mice. The birds were going out to, feed one day to get grains, and they got stuck in this net that the hunter had put out. And so they decided, what do we do? Is this sure death for us? The hunter was very pleased, but the birds said no. Together they flew with the net, right? Because together they could all raise the net and they flew together.
Yeah.
So they had escaped, but there was a problem. They were still caught in the net. Whatever they did with their beaks, they were not able to get out of the net. But there was a colony of mice nearby. They went there and the mice cut the net for them. And that story, to me, is so important when we think about solidarity, because we are all sitting in different parts of the ecosystem. We may be birds, we may be mice, right? As long as we are not the hunter, we are good. come together, because it's going to need all of us if we have to ensure dignity, safety, security, peace, rights for every single person. And that happens with intentional inclusion. We cannot have solidarity unless we are intentional about inclusion. Because if any group of people is left out, if there is injustice, if there is discrimination, if there is violence, there will never be solidarity. And so the one lesson we have learned and that we are learning is that inclusion is a journey. It is not a destination. It is not possible to be all inclusive at once. We know how difficult it is. But if we are committed to inclusion, we can build towards it intentionally, step by step. So with that, we are going to once again, we're going to once again look at a small video to see what solidarity means for MCLD and our work. And then we will head to the Latin America and Caribbean region to hear from my colleague Luana about the idea of Abhyayala that they talked about before we move to speakers. First, the video.
In 2023, I was invited to Denmark to participate at the localization conference. But unfortunately, I was unable to travel because the visa was not in my country.
I remember the feeling of elation amongst the community members at MCLD Sierra Leone members when Doris was first invited to Copenhagen in 2023, and then the sheer helplessness we all felt when we realized she couldn't make it. And this wasn't new. This had been happening to majority world participants year after year. So in Copenhagen, the few of us who had made it decided enough is enough. We are going to do something to change it. And thus the sign-on letter was born. We knew this could not be owned by an organization or a network. It had to be without egos and logos. It needed all of us. And that is what we did.
The letter was signed by over 1,800 organizations from all over the majority world. The signatories represented a broad spectrum of civil society organizations, national organizations, youth-led organizations, among many others, who came together in a unified message for impactful change. We also worked together to reach out to INGOs, bilateral donors, multilateral donors, and philanthropic foundations to leverage the relationships we have built over the years to make sure the majority world voice was being heard by those that need to hear it the most. And they listened. 40 INGOs and 10 donors signed on.
As INGOs and foundations signed on to the letter, people began to ask us how to operationalize the principles they were signing on to. As a response, we made a plan to put together a guidance document. We knew that this guidance document needed to be shaped by the perspectives, aspirations, and knowledge of local actors, so we invited conveners to share the difficulties they face in operationalizing these 5 principles, and also invited majority world signatures to surveys and listening cafes. Over 300 people contributed, and then our guidance document was co-created by majority world actors.
In April 2020, MCLD launched its COVID call series. We mobilized within just a couple of weeks because of an urgent sense of confusion and unknown. From the World Bank to grassroots CBOs, we were asking, how could community-led development adapt to this challenge? At a moment when community mobilization and support was more important than ever, we didn't have a roadmap. So MCLD members and allies came together to answer this question, to share updates and what we were learning, as well as to find solidarity and lean on each other.
COVID-19 was a turning point for MCLD. Groups of community-based organizations began launching their own MCLD associations, sometimes with no INGO support at all. In 2020, MCLD Nigeria became the first registered national association.
So those were examples of solidarity. Sorry? Those were examples of solidarity, just two examples of how we've been able to come together. And now we move to Luana, to Argentina.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Tuvimos un evento espectacular. Los miembros se entusiasmaron mucho cuando nos tocó el tema de la solidaridad, pero sí querían darle una vuelta de tuerca al concepto de solidaridad porque tenemos un concepto muy ancestral y profundo que es el de Abya-Yala, que implica el territorio de Latinoamérica y el Caribe unificado, donde no hay fronteras, no hay migrantes, todo el territorio es uno, todos somos uno y trabajamos muchísimo en nuestro evento en este espectacular concepto. Manejamos una palabra colectiva y nos imaginamos, si bien fuimos al pasado de MDLC Latinoamérica porque tuvimos la visita de THP México, nos focalizamos mucho en el futuro y en lo que queremos, lo que visualizamos y lo que queremos generar de aquí al futuro. Cerramos con una ceremonia espectacular que nos unificó como grupo y esperemos avanzar hacia todas nuestras metas. Gracias.
Thank you, Luana. Yes, we did end the Latin America event with a beautiful candle lighting ceremony where each of us put out into the universe our hopes and aspirations for the future so that it happens. Now we're going to move to our speakers. May I welcome Jamaica Maxwell. Jamaica is the Director for Civil Society and Leadership Initiative at the David and Lucille Packard Foundation, the second foundation that stepped in to support MCLD when we made the transition. So Jamaica, over to you.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So amazing to be with all of you today in this incredible celebration. It is truly an honor to be with you. First off, congratulations to MCLD and every single one of you. This gathering itself is a powerful representation of solidarity in action. So we come together today from across the globe, not just to mark an anniversary, but to sit, to listen, to laugh, and to honor the collective journey we are all on together. Finding each other, holding each other up, both in suffering and celebration, is solidarity. And in times when resources are scarce, community like this is abundance. I'm proud to be in partnership with MCLD through my work with the Civil Society and Leadership Initiative at the Packard Foundation. For us, civil society includes all forms of organizing outside the sectors of government and business, including community-based organizations and movements. Our work is rooted in a simple but urgent belief that a strong local civil society is a prerequisite to lasting progress on the intertwined issues of our day. In other words, the state of civil society is a global barometer on justice, democracy, and progress to maintain a thriving planet. When the safe space for civil society to operate in, or civic space, shrinks anywhere in the world, from Nairobi to New York, we feel it. This is especially true as we face a convergence of climate crises and democratic backsliding. These threats are not separate. Our team works to ensure civil society has the freedom, resources, and safety to thrive through investments in organizational strength and leadership, open civic space, civil society infrastructure, such as through networks like MCLD that act as vital connective tissue, and through advocacy for investments in local civil society and locally led development. In reflecting on solidarity today, I wanted to share three things that I hold close as I think about my role as a donor and funder in this space. First, solidarity starts with humility, with acknowledging what I know and, more importantly, what I don't. I may know the mechanics of grant making and strategy and what I've experienced in my lived experience, but I don't live the challenges faced every day in communities. Listening deeply enough to change matters. Listening is where accountability begins. And listening leads to shifts in strategy, and it led to shifts in our strategy about 8 years ago. So as an example, we were focusing with partners in a specific geography, and they shared with us directly. They were brave enough to share with us directly about the threats to their safety that were escalating at the time. At that moment in time, we did not support security or protection work or training in any country in the world. And as we listened to their stories, we recognized that we needed to support security work. We knew it would be critical to our partners. And so what began as a single security training has now evolved into locally based security hubs in geographies around the globe. Second, how we fund matters, perhaps as much or more than what we fund. This means things like lowering burdens on proposals and reporting, providing multi-year flexible support, but it also means how we show up as individuals with our partners. I remember meeting a partner early in my time at Packard, maybe about 10 years ago. She was with an organization that was growing fast, and I took a moment to ask her how she was doing as a person, as a mother, as a leader. And she became emotional, and tears appeared in her eyes because no one had asked her that question in months. And she had not been seen beyond being an organizational leader, a movement leader. But being seen as a human was overdue. Coaching, supporting well-being, and resourcing operational support, these are not luxuries. They are the scaffolding of durable and lasting change. Third, the role that funders play beyond distributing resources may be just as important as the resources themselves. Alongside distributing funds, I'm in a unique position to network, convene, and connect the dots across the geographies I work in and across differences. The Civil Society and Leadership Initiative supports what we call capacity resource hubs around the world. These are platforms that provide easy access training and coaching on a range of topics for civil society organizations in a given geography. The model thrives when it is of and for the local context, responsive to the needs of the local partners because it is locally led. Yet these locally models also benefit greatly from connection, just as many of you benefit from engagement in the MCLD structure. We are working to connect these localized models for sharing learning and peer support across geographies. In short, solidarity for me is listening deeply and showing up with humility, recognize that how we support is as critical as what we support, and understanding that even when financial resources are limited, there are other roles to play, such as making connections, convening, and amplifying voices. MCLD, you are a model of all of this. Supportive networks like yours are where we find not just hope, but also courage, inspiration, and strategic vision. Congratulations on this milestone, especially to you, Gunjan, playing your leadership role. And thank you for your commitment, your leadership, and your solidarity. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jamaica. And yes, solidarity does begin with humility and intentional listening. So thank you. We are so glad that, the hope for us is that we have so many partners in this ecosystem who understand this, who believe this, and who work with us on this. We do have one more speaker, but before we move to President Joyce Banda, we are actually going to round up the solidarity segment. So I'm going to invite my colleague, Kathy Amenya from Kenya, to tell us what is MCLD thinking of in solidarity going forward.
Hello, can you hear me? So solidarity is not new for MCLD. Historically, we've been excellent at building connections between our members, creating guidance documents for collaboration, and fostering relationships within our network. We facilitated knowledge sharing, developed partnerships, and created spaces for our national associations to learn from each other. But the current moment demands more. We are shifting from building solidarity just within our movement to actively forging coalitions with networks that share our values. This isn't just about working together, it's about fighting together. We've added a specific strategy on diversity and inclusion because we recognize that the attacks on these values aren't just policy disagreements, they are threats to the fundamental principles that underpin community-led development. We recognize that you cannot have genuine community leadership when entire groups are systematically excluded or silenced. Our strategic approach is building movement ecosystems. So going forward, we will leverage our strengths as movement builders to fight misinformation through networks, connect communities, expand partnership ecosystems, and build solidarity movements. We will also intentionally focus on diversity and inclusion. We'll strengthen the movement ecosystem's capacity by supporting national associations in developing inclusive leadership practices, facilitating peer learning on overcoming barriers to participation, connecting marginalized communities with digital inclusion resources, building movement-wide accessibility capacity. When civic spaces shrinks anywhere, it affects all of us. And therefore, by building solidarity ecosystems rather than isolated programs, we are creating protective networks for community-led approaches everywhere. The strategic importance is that we are proactively building the movement infrastructure that makes genuine community leadership possible, because inclusion isn't an add-on to our work, but it's the foundation upon which all community development rests. This is how we turn the current moment of challenge into an opportunity to build stronger, more connected, more resilient movements for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for showing us how we can actually turn this moment. Before we actually move to the last of our viewing parties and close out the call, we do have a longtime friend and believer of the movement and a message from her. So we're going to hear from President Joyce Banda, the former president of Malawi.
My name is Dr. Joyce Banda. I'm the former president of the Republic of Malawi. I have had the privilege and honor to work with communities in my country and across the African continent. And I have learned a few things that I would like to share, particularly that I've learned in the past 2 years, where I have gone about in my country trying to establish what I call smart villages. And a smart village is one that has access to modern houses, to food and nutrition security, environmental management, agri-business, a school, a clinic, a church, or a mosque. I have found the power in ordinary people to change their situation. I have learned that sometimes, most of the time, what they require is just our support, those of us who claim to know better. They know how to get from one place to the next. They deserve respect as we go about working with them to change their own situation. I have found that the bottom-up approach is the best. And therefore, my advice to all those of us who work as development agents is to realize that when we get to the communities, we have to listen to the people, we have to follow behind them, we have to stand by and watch them as they transform their lives, and with us providing their requirements. I have learned that international NGOs must come to Africa and partner with local initiatives to go down to grassroots to work with the people that matter. I therefore have great respect for the movement for community-led development This is the organization that represents what we in the developing world require.
So that was President Banda, again, emphasizing the importance of listening. And I think that's kind of been a theme throughout the day. We've heard a few key words. I noticed somebody in chat mentioned that C seems to be the letter of the day: courage, commitment, community, right? It's all about the C's of the world, collaboration. Okay, let's head over now to Togo. Bienvenue, Togo. Uh-oh. Yep.
There they are.
Oh, they have different views. And finally, yeah, hello, Liberia.
Yeah, there they are.
Ciao, ciao from Ethiopia. Ciao, ciao from Ethiopia.
Thank you
How
so
are
much,
you?
Liberia, for that musical hello to us. We just need a few more minutes and then we will come to the close of our time together. But before we do that, first, again, I want to go back to what I said at the beginning. It doesn't matter how long you've been at MCLD. It doesn't matter if you've been there since the beginning of the journey or if you've just joined today's call. Wherever we are, whichever part of the world, there is one thing that has powered us and the work we do, and that is connection. I want you to, everybody, to just take a minute to reflect back on the last 10 years of your life, on the people, the connections, the relationships, the organizations, the networks, the communities that have supported you in this journey, that have made you believe another world is possible, that have made you get up and carry on with the work you do. Let's all take a few seconds to acknowledge that, because there is nothing like the power of human connection. We are all in very difficult times. The world around us seems to be full of suffering and trauma. There is wars, there is violence, there's disasters, there is hunger, there is starvation. There is the fear of we don't know what is happening with the way the world is moving towards isolationism. But there is one thing that we all have, that historically we have had as people, that nobody has been able to take away from us. The ability to come together and work together in collective action. But it's not easy. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, and I can tell you, it is not easy. Whoever thinks this is a breeze, whoever thinks that, collaboration, collective action, coming together is easy, we need to think again. It's not, because we all also have to deal with everyday questions of survival, about what we see in our immediate communities. It's difficult to think about the outside world when you have suffering and pain in your own house, in your own person, in your own community. But if we do not do that, that pain will not go away. And that is the courage that the moment requires of us. That is the hope that the moment has for us. And to be able to build interconnection, the most important thing that we need is trust. And we all know there is a shortfall, a deficit of trust these days. It's difficult. We don't trust each other many times. And we asked funders to trust us. We asked governments to trust us. We asked communities to trust us. It's not easy to trust. And yet, without trust, we can never be a community. So, what can we do to build that trust intentionally? And I think throughout the day today, we've heard about it. We've heard about the power of intentional listening. We've heard about the power of honesty and humility. We've heard about the power of communication, of intentional communication and intentional respect, of follow-up and feedback, and most importantly, of intentional inclusion. I know that the world has changed rapidly for so many decades and centuries with the power of collective action. We have seen the power of people time and again, time and again. We have seen how human society has progressed, and that has happened with collective action. So we, in this moment, have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to transform our world, to move away from the fear, the uncertainty, the survival mentality that we are all in, the competitiveness, which we've been taught that there are 5 seats at the table. If you want to eat, you have to fight for those 5 seats. And the only way to do it is to pull each other down to get there. By the time we get to the table, there is no food left. How about we change that? How about we say, why should there be only 5 seats at the table? How about we make that 5 into 50, into 500, into 5,000, into 5 million seats? We can do this. We have it in all of us. If we decide to trust, to listen, to be honest, and to create those safe spaces where we can be honest with each other, where we can acknowledge our fears, our weaknesses. We can acknowledge the stuff we need to unlearn, because there is so much that we need to unlearn. I learn about new things every day that I realize, oh my God, I haven't done this. I need to unlearn. But if we are intentional, if we are committed, if we are courageous, I know we can do it. So I invite every single one of you who is in this call to go out with the message of connection, with the message of solidarity, to the communities you are a part of, to the organizations, to the networks that you are a part of. Because this is the moment. If we cannot come together now, we will not be able to change the course of history. But if we do, if we lean into this connection, if we show up for each other, if we listen to each other, if we stand with each other, we will change the course of history, and the future will be community-led. It will be just. It will be equitable. It will be peaceful. Thank you again for being with us today. I'm going to now hand over to my colleague, Sarah Boble, who has essentially been running this whole thing, who has pulled us all together, who has been managing all of the different viewing parties behind the scenes. So Sarah, over to you.
Thanks so much, Gunjan, and thank you everyone for being here today. 10 years is no small feat, and this celebration has been such a beautiful reminder of the passion, dedication, and support that brought us here. It's my pleasure to offer our heartfelt thanks before we close the event, so please bear with us for just a few more minutes. First, a huge thank you to all of you for joining us from so many countries around the world, both today and in our journey so far. Thank you to our translators who make sure that our calls and events are inclusive and accessible, and that we stay true to our values. To our friends, partners, and allies, including so many volunteers who supported this event, from making videos to slide decks and more. Thank you to our regional coordinators who organized 4 fantastic regional events. And the rest of my colleagues on the Secretariat team for making these events happen. There's so much work that happens behind the scenes to make sure that we have events like this, and our team has done an amazing job, so thank you. Thank you to our members who believe in our work so fiercely and make the movement what it is, a space for collective action that brings transformation. And thank you to our national associations, many of whom we've seen today, who are the real change makers. Thank you to each of our speakers today. Your presence made the celebration richer and more inspiring. Finally, a heartfelt thank you to our committed leaders, past and present, whose vision has paved the way for our journey. John and Gunjan, none of us would be here celebrating without you. Let's carry forward the lessons learned and knowledge shared today as we continue our journey together. Looking forward to many more years of growth, progress, and shared accomplishments across the globe with all of you. Thank you so much, and let's look forward with solidarity and unity. Congratulations to all of us on 10 years. If you will, now we'd like to have everyone unmute and say bye in true MCLD tradition.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Chao, hasta la próxima.
Be about 9.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, bye bye. Lui tendrá la caméra.
Chao, hasta la próxima.
Although they have transferred the other one,
Hasta luego, ya.
then the other 5 comes, which is 9. It's 9 p.m. If they don't, we'll redirect.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, all the viewing parties.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you.
Congratulations.